Hi guys, let's get started with our grammar and writing lesson today. We are going to start off with vocabulary. The first word is motif. Motif. All of the words, by the way, in today's vocabulary lesson have to do with vocabulary with literature. So a motif is a recurring subject or theme in a work of literature. So it's something that you keep seeing, it keeps coming up, a tema that is always that keeps over and over. You see it in a book or a play or whatever it is. For example, a common melodrama, that's a vocabulary word from earlier, a common melodrama motif features the hero rescuing the damsel in distress from a villain. So that's a subject that you see come up all the time in these types of works of literature. Pathos. Pathos. This is the part of the story that makes the reader feel sorry for the characters. You feel bad for what's going on in their lives. For example, pathos occurs in the Curiosity Shop book when Nell is robbed by her own grandfather. Oh, that would be horrible. Could you imagine being robbed by your own grandfather? So you feel sorry for Nell. Perhaps you even feel sorry for her grandfather that he would be so desperate as to rob her. The narrator. This is the person telling the story. For example, the narrator explained the thoughts of the protagonist. So the narrator tells the story. Most books have some kind of narrator. Sometimes the narrator is involved in the story, so you see them saying, I said this, I thought this happened to me. Or sometimes the narrator is just someone who knows everybody in the story and may not even have a name. But the narrator is the one telling the story, explaining what is going on. Figures of speech. Now this is kind of a broad term, and a lot of things fall under this category. Figures of speech are word pictures using comparisons. So figures of speech give you an idea of something using word pictures. This includes metaphors, similes, personification. In case you've forgotten, metaphors compare two things without using like or as. Similes compare two or more things with using like or as. And personification is when you give human character traits to something that's not human. For example, his head was as bald as an egg is a figure of speech. The simile, to be exact, because you have that word as. You're comparing the head with an egg. All right, let's do some practice by filling in the blank with the correct vocabulary word. Number 1, the character's grave illness created blank in the story. The character's grave illness. Which vocabulary word would fit best? Grave means very serious. Don't forget, you can pause at any time if you need more time to think. Number 2, in a Western novel, the blank is often the cowboy in white beating the rustler in black. It means he's being victorious. He wins. He's ganando over the rustler in black. So which vocabulary word would best go there? Number 3, as blank, Pip told the story of Great Expectations from his point of view. Very classic book right there. Who tells the story? Number 4, the poem was full of word pictures or blank. What are word pictures? I want that whole thing. Okay, let's see how you did. Number 1, the character's grave illness created pathos in the story. You feel sorry for the character because he's very, very sick. Number 2, In a Western novel, the motif is often the cowboy in white beating the rustler in black. Number 3, as narrator, Pip told the story of Great Expectations from his point of view. And number 4, the poem was full of word pictures or figures of speech. How'd you do? Did you do well on those? I really hope so. Let me know if you have any confusion about any of those particular terms. All right, you are working today on showing a character. Now, everything you're learning about character sketches is something that you're going to put to use in a writing project coming up very, very soon. So, showing a character. When you are showing a character, you are letting that character's actions and words speak for you. So, instead of describing the character, saying they have, black hair or whatever, you let their actions, you let their words describe who they are. Instead of stating that someone has a lot of courage, you show that they have a lot of courage. If you show your character by using incidents and examples to reveal character traits, you will have a much more vivid and interesting picture of the character than if you just told about him. It's very boring to just be told everything. It's more exciting if you are shown everything. That's why a lot of people, like I said before, you prefer sometimes TV to books because you feel like you can see it and it's more interesting to see it than just to read it. You want to be able to picture it. So a good writer will make their characters something that you can picture, that you can see in your mind when you read about it. By describing what your character does and says, you allow your reader to see your character as someone who is watching them would. So it's just like watching TV, except you're reading a book because of how vividly, how creatively, how interestingly they describe their character. All right, so it's your turn to do a little practice. Showing a character. So your page is showing a character, page 11. These are your instructions. Analyzing showing language. So it's saying the language, the words, the palabras you use to show your character. Decide which of these passages show rather than tell. Circle the numbers of the paragraphs that tell. Then rewrite them so that they will show. So you have to decide which paragraphs show you what the character is like instead of telling you, coming out and saying this person is like this. You can use lots of descriptive words to tell, but it's still telling rather than showing. So decide which ones show, which ones tell. Circle the ones that tell, and then rewrite them so that they show instead of just telling, just stating it. So here we go with number 1. As Terry saw each puddle, he stomped happily in it, sending a shower of muddy water over his clothes. His jacket was streaked with grass stains, and something sticky plastered his hair to his cheeks. Okay, I want you to think about that. Number 2. The conductor was grouchy and rude. He took each passenger's ticket grudgingly. Number 3. The zookeeper obviously loved her animals. She showered affection on even the scaliest or most dangerous of her charges. I'd never seen someone so happy in her job. All right, and the last one. The substitute teacher marched in and stood before us, her dark hair in waves as stiff as her posture. Our hearts sank at her greeting. Don't even think about goofing off. Now, let's get to work. So I want you to look at those 4 little paragraphs. You have to decide which ones show and which ones tell. Circle the ones that tell because you're going to need to change them into ones that show. So number 1, does this one show rather than tell? Or does it tell rather than show? This one shows because it talks about how he's stomping happily in it, so you can kind of picture him with a big smile on his face. You can picture the shower of muddy water going whoosh over his clothes. You can picture his jacket. You can picture how the hair is against his cheeks. You know that it's probably raining outside, so it is showing rather than telling. All right, now how about number 2? Number 2 tells us. It doesn't really describe a whole lot in number 2. It just tells us he's grouchy, he's rude, he took the tickets grudgingly. I mean, it's not bad. It certainly does give a good description, uses good, vivid words, but it's telling us rather than showing. Which, by the way, let me say here that sometimes it is necessary to tell instead of show because your readers don't want to do all of the work of watching it. They do sometimes need you to give them a little bit, feed them a little bit of information. So 2, that's one that is telling rather than showing. Number 3, the zookeeper obviously loved her animals. She showered affection on even the scaliest or most dangerous of her charges. I've never seen someone so happy in her job. Okay, so how do you know that this person is happy? Are you shown how they're happy or are you told how they're happy? You're told. Again, this is not a bad paragraph. There's nothing wrong with it. It tells you what the person is like, what they do, rather than just showing you. So circle this one as well. Number 4, the substitute teacher marched in and stood before us, her dark hair in waves as stiff as her posture. Our hearts sank at her greeting. Don't even think about goofing off. Now let's get to work. Show or tell? Well, this one's more of show. We can picture what her hair is like. That is in stiff curls. We can picture how she said her greeting because your heart sank. That means they went down, made you sad. So this one is a showing instead of telling. So that means that you need to correct it on the space at the bottom, sentence 2 and 3. Let me rephrase that. You're not correcting it, you're changing it so that it shows instead of tells. So don't tell me how a person's feeling, just show me how they're feeling by their actions, by examples. That's it for today. So if you have any questions about your writing, just let me know. All right, have a wonderful day, guys. Bye.